Hello, BookTube. Well, as you can see, I have a guest. This is my friend Sam. Care to say hello to my imaginary BookTube friends?
Hello.
I'm always happy to see it when I have a guest. They like somebody to listen to other than me. It gives them a little relief. I know you wouldn't know how to identify with that.
I'm sure you won't be talking much during this video.
No, not at all. No, I thought for this video we would have an in-depth discussion of J.R.R. Tolkien's masterful posthumous work, The Silmarillion, specifically the Ainulindalë and the Valaquenta.
Absolutely. I prepped on the bus all the way up here.
He doesn't have any idea what
I
I'm talking
Wikipedia J.R.R. Tolkien.
He doesn't
First,
know-
I forgot the last R, and I got a completely different person.
He doesn't know the Silmarillion. He doesn't know the Ainulindalë. He doesn't know the Valaquenta, and he doesn't know this Tolkien person. Fortunately, thanks to Hannah, I have a backup plan. She sent the list of questions
Oh, Hannah.
that saves the day. So if you're wondering who you should thank for not talking about Tolkien, it's Hannah. So I thought we'd go over these questions and see what we can make of them.
Okay.
I know one of them at least always causes you to freeze like a deer in the headlights. So I
pretty much all of
I
them.
imagine that it will this time too.
Prepare yourself for 12 minutes of mumbling, people.
Well, at least it's better than a whole evening of mumbling, which they are being spared. I have not been spared in 50 years of coming over here. All right, question number one. You are both professional book reviewers who read and write about a great number of new releases. What are a few non-contemporary books that... Okay. What are a few non-contemporary books that mean the most to you or which you have most frequently read? So I think this might be Hannah's egghead way of asking what our favorite books are. I'm trapped between two eggheads here. So, all of my non-new release favorites are known on this channel. I talk about them all the time. And you have a pressing schedule. Do you ever feel a need to recharge your batteries and read an old favorite? I imagine Woodhouse would be high on that list.
Yeah, but I'm not sure he's a favorite. What are favorites? I mean, there's some need to be sort of original here and interesting in this answer, but my answers are not interesting because they're just the great books. I mean, they really are. I'm sorry to say that War and Peace really is one of these books. It's embarrassing to say that.
Why?
And yet it is true. It's the great novel, and but what are other favorite books of mine? I mean, I'm also sorry to say that Shakespeare is one of those. That Hamlet is one of those books that you can just pick up and reread, and you know it so well, and yet it's bottomless, and so you always find new things based on the day that you read it. What could be a more interesting answer?
Meg.
Bottomless.
It's Meg for me. It's a giant albino prehistoric killer shark.
There are lots of answers here. But here's one I read recently. It was I reread recently. It was The Varieties of Religious Experience.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
By the interesting James brother.
By the good James Brighter.
Oh my.
No, they're both.
That's how you recharge your batteries?
I think so.
You're a regular man of the people, ain't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Help us.
Yeah. I hung out in the town square.
You should read Meg. You should read Tolkien too. Maybe you shouldn't read Meg. I don't understand what's going on here. All I think about when I think about that is that I spent years saying, well, wouldn't it be great if you reviewed a science fiction novel and then you finally did review that Library of America set? And I was like, no! Because it was the Library of America did a set of, I think you did the science fiction novels of the 60s, I think, or something like that. And in their sets, their 2-volume sets, they reprint 4 novels, and they're uneven in quality. It's like, the resulting review was funny enough to be worth it, but I was cringing the whole time thinking, oh my god, he's never going to try this again. He's never. Or what was the other one that you did? It wasn't The Terror by Dan Simmons. It was the next one.
Oh, right.
It was the one about the people climbing an ice mountain.
Yes. You're right.
The Abominable.
The
It was
Abominable.
Abominable. And I read the book
And you
and
think
realized,
it's going to have a Yeti.
It's,
You're waiting.
right, you get to the end, and the ending is not a Yeti, and his reaction was, "Oh, so all science fiction is this disappointing."
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next question is directed at you, and this is the one that might make you freeze like a deer in the headlights, because you always do, and you're not alone. I know a lot of people who are this way. What is one of your favorite novels published in 2024 so far?
Oh, I can do that.
Is there anything you are especially looking forward to?
Sure. Okay. There've been plenty of good novels, but probably one of my favorites is a novel called Choice. The novelist is called Neil Mukherjee. He's a terrific writer. One of his previous books was called The Lives of Others, which is an unfortunate title, but it was a fantastic book about sort of the decline and fall of an Indian family. And this one is about a Indian British man and his life. That's one part, and it's a little too complicated for me to explain here, but it has 3 sections. They're kind of metafictional in that they're related to each other. The 2 following sections are alluded to in the first one, but they're all about kind of the hypocrisies of liberalism, and they are about the question of how do you make a difference? Is it possible to make a difference? Can you do that incrementally, or do you have to oppose the system entirely if you find that there's injustice in it? It's very unsettling because it's very relentless in the probity of its questioning. It doesn't let you off the hook with these questions at all, but it also doesn't propose a clear answer. It's not saying that it knows the answer. It's not high-handed about anything. It's tormented in its search for the answer, and the writing is extremely sharp throughout. So that's one. What's coming out that I'm looking forward to? I don't know. Richard Price has a new novel, the first one in 15 years or something like that.
You've never reviewed him before, right?
For Open Letters Monthly, I did.
You did his last one?
The last one that came out, which was 2007 or
Good
something
Lord.
like that. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
What was that?
That was called Lush Life, which was another bad title, but it was just sort of another of his sort of street dramas set in the Lower East Side, gentrifying Lower East Side. I don't know what this one is about.
You have to worry, though, right? And that's a talent pitched to a high temperature. You always have to worry what's going to happen to that.
Yeah.
Why haven't we seen a book?
Yeah, well, he's been in TV a lot, but yeah, I don't know. It's true, but he's pretty demanding of himself, so I don't know. I don't think he would just put out junk.
Okay, the next question is for me. And Steve, what is one of your nonfiction favorites of the year so far? Anything upcoming? Well, some of my nonfiction favorites aren't out yet. But one of them is, I just reviewed it. I just read it. It's not even a book. It doesn't even have text. It's a picture book. It's The Ant Colony. And it is mind-blowing. The more you think about what you're reading there, the more mind-blowing you are. But also, there are a couple of big biographies that I have read and am currently working on, and one collection of letters that aren't out yet. So it doesn't feel right to really, wind people up about them. I mean, there's a biography of a Chinese statesman that is, I've talked about it on this channel before. It'll be out this month. I think it's superb. I can't help but think it's going to get widely reviewed. So, that it's just calls online, and that would be one of the things that I would pick. There's a book coming out. There are a bunch of things coming out. There's one that we've seen on this channel, a big new book about the Soviet dissident experience. But also a couple of things that we've mentioned. There's Dan Jones has a new biography coming out of Henry V, and also Max Boot has a big new biography coming out in September of Ronald Reagan. And we were both gloomily prospecting on what that would be like, because Ronald Reagan is one of those weird figures in history that almost never gets historical treatment. Almost always it's the biographer digging up his corpse in order to dance around in his skin, in order to make a point. Use Reagan to make your own points. Nobody does that for Henry V. So other historical issues don't get used that way, but Reagan almost always does. So the question earlier this evening was, will this in any way be a serious biography? And I don't have any idea. If it's not a serious biography, it'll have plenty of company. Bill O'Reilly has a new book coming out with, what's his name? Alex Dugard, whatever his name is.
Oh.
Ripped the two of them to shreds 10, 20 years ago. They're still writing books. It's like they don't even listen to me. But anyway, Sam, next one is for you. What is a nonfiction recent release you especially admire? Given that you don't review nonfiction regularly, do you find it harder to recommend nonfiction? Or perhaps might you find it easier to recommend nonfiction since you're mostly reading nonfiction for pleasure instead of work? I know. In case I didn't clarify already, Hannah and Sam are cut from the same cloth. These questions are being written by a nerd. Big brain nerd.
Okay, if I can attend to Codicil 1, Part A of that question. No, any.
The two of you would talk nonstop. If she were here, I wouldn't get a word in edgewise. No. I would just be sitting here. Frida and I would just be sitting here.
No, it's a good question about. I mean, I think recommending. If I read something good, I would not hesitate to recommend it. Do you mean do I feel comfortable making like a practiced judgment on a work of nonfiction? Probably it would be more difficult if it was a work of history or if it was a biography and I didn't know a lot about the field or the subject. I could just bloviate, but
works for some people.
But no, in the question of recommending. But the main issues here is I don't read all that many. I don't read enough. I'm babe in the woods when it comes to new stuff. But we were just talking. Well, I don't know if this constitutes nonfiction. Well, I suppose it is. We were talking about Elias Canetti because I'm doing shortly. We'll be writing a piece on him, and he was a very eclectic writer, and he wrote novels, and he wrote a famous novel. He wrote a famous sociological study, and then he wrote he sort of ended his career writing aphorisms. And he has a book coming out called The Book Against Death, which is a collection of his aphorisms written over like 50 years, which is just, he took this very quixotic ethical stance, which was he would treat death as an entity, like he would anthropomorphize it, and he would condemn it, and that he would just set his life to be an objection to the existence of death. He refused to ever accept it. Even though it was inevitable, he would simply be against it in all of its forms for everyone. And this book is just his reflections on that very strange theme, set over the course of starting in the middle of World War II and going all the way to he lived to be like 90 or something. And it's just and they're very sharp and very trenchant and very strange and provocative and bracing, and they're great. So I would definitely recommend that. The Book Against Death, Elias Canetti.
I want to end my career with a collection of aphorisms.
You should.
Not giant killer sharks, I think.
You should. But an aphorism, it can't be.
I know it can't be long.
It can't be a 28-minute video.
No, that's what I hate about aphorisms. What are you, some sort of miserable quitter? Anyway, I'm not coming off on this question and answer question good anyway, so I don't have anything to lose. It's basically you and Hannah talking to each other. Well, I hadn't really thought of that. What does Maimonides have to say about that? Well, I'm just sitting here talking about giant sharks. So let's just. It's a microcosm of the evening with the camera off, too, so we might as well just keep going here. And this next one's for me. Yay! What are some recent works of fiction that you love? Tell us about them. You review both fiction and nonfiction, but you seem to have more of affinity for reading the latter, because the latter is a lot fewer crap than the former. Do you prefer reviewing the latter as well? I prefer reviewing the latter unless I feel like cutting someone's abdomen open and dancing in their blood, in which case fiction is the perfect thing. Because fiction writers don't have any idea what they're doing, and when they're finished not knowing what they're doing and the cocaine runs out, they just get up from the table and leave, sometimes in mid-sentence. So it's pretty easy to enjoy yourself when you're reviewing something like that. But in terms of things that I liked, well, I mentioned Mary Jo Campbell, The Waters, right at the beginning of the year. I thought that was remarkable. I've thought about that since, and it hasn't gone down in my mind. I recently read, and will read when I get it in hardcover, the new Greg Iles. I thought it was superb. I think he really is superb. Also, I read Ways and Means,
Oh, good.
a debut novel that you recommended.
Yes.
A debut novel called Ways and Means. A further exponent of Sam's ongoing fascination with the gays. He doesn't quite understand them, and to be honest, neither do I. but it's a gay novel, but it's to call it a gay novel compared to a lot of the froth that comes out is... I don't know what to make of it. I get the strong impression that the author is insufferable with a capital I, but I'm never going to know. I don't live in New York. I'm never going to meet these people at a WeHo diner or anything like that. But the book, I thought, had some very good parts to it. I don't think I was as sold on it as you were. And I imagine part of that has to do with varying, the euphemism would be life experiences, since I did not approach the book's extremely detailed sex scenes with what I imagine was your Darwin on the Beagle reserve. I didn't approach them that way, so to me they seemed like, okay, can we get on with this? But I did kind of like Ways and Means. There's been a couple of other works of fiction that I've liked. I'm assuming here, since the question is from Hannah, that I can't mention genre fiction because, like you, she doesn't know that it exists. but yeah, The Waters would definitely count, and the new Greg Isles, which I'm hoping gets reviewed. I don't know if it will or not. Greg Isles is one of those odd authors that has the whiff of genre about him. So the literary poobahs at major venues tend to say, well, do we really want to review this guy? It's a 900-page thriller. I wish they would give him the same elasticity of consideration that they give Elroy. But because the new Greg Isles is every bit as good as the Cold 6000 or the Black Dahlia. I don't know why James Elroy gets the pass. But anyway, let's see here. We have a few more Hannah questions to go. Oh God, help us! What aspect of a novel matter the most to you? Whether you're reading for a formal review or for BookTube or just for your own personal enjoyment. As the BookTube folks might ask, do you read for plot, for character, for theme, for writing style? In other words, what makes you fall in love with a book? And then there's 500 words about falling in love and what that means. I think pheromones are mentioned. It goes on at great length. But I think we know what the question means.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Well, the professional answer here is whatever is best in the book. That's what matters most. Whatever is most notable in the book. Whatever is carrying the book and making it noteworthy and making it special. Whatever formal aspect is that author excels in and is highlighting that, is showcasing that, then that's what matters most. For me, what do I find? Probably if I'm I think I need to be engaged. There needs to be ideas that engage me. I think to really like things, it needs to work on all the other levels also. But I think like those books that are really just kind of formal structural experiments when there's no really ideas in them and it's about the play of language or those rarely do anything for me. I mean, I might appreciate them, but they're not really what I remember, and they're not really what attract me the most. So there has to be some sort of interesting and challenging, I guess you would call it intellectual content, but that's not necessarily what I mean. It doesn't even have to be intellectual. It just it's working with ideas. It's trying to integrate those ideas into the story somehow.
If Sam's answer didn't clarify to you that Sam and Hannah are basically talking to each other, I don't know what will. But for myself, I hate ideas, as I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee. For me, the thing that drives me nuts is when the author doesn't believe what he's doing. When he's condescending, when he's phoning it in, when he's doing some mannerism that he learned in the Cantab Lounge basement, when it's not real, when it isn't sincere. If it's sincere,
yeah,
it can be as derivative as the world is long, and I don't care. Provided it's sincere, I will judge it that way. But I cannot. The contemporary fiction scene, I don't know how you deal with it. So much of it is just posturing. I don't know. Maybe it's just the old folk in me, but it really does seem that fiction is less sincere today than it was even 30 years ago.
Really?
You probably see just the opposite.
I don't know 30 years ago how sincere it was. I don't know. Really? I'm trying to think like, I don't know. God, you read like mid-list stuff from the 70s? That stuff seems excruciating to me. Like,
Yeah.
it's all sort of like, I don't know. Everyone was doing sex farces and stuff.
Yeah.
It's all like, it's like you can see the bell bottoms in the writing and they're all
Yeah,
trying
but
to...
what about all the social media stuff now in contemporary fiction?
Well, it's probably, yeah, a lot of it is not good. Yeah, a lot of it is not good.
I think we probably agree more than it sounds here about what bothers us and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Hannah has another question. What do you approach books in different genres? How do you do that? Subdivisions such as fantasy and romance and mystery and horror? When you evaluate them for review, is there a general standard to apply, or are the particulars in the genre important? If the latter, how do you determine what those more particular aspects might be? You don't review genre.
Not really. So I don't do, if I do, then I don't review it as a genre book. I just have to read it.
Because the journal has genre reviews, right? They don't.
Yeah.
Some dedicated ones.
Yeah. They have a fantasy sci-fi person and they have a mystery person. Yeah. So no. So I don't review it as a genre book. I just review it as a book that I've read, and which probably means that sometimes, so sometimes I'll be stupefied by something which is just a complete genre staple that I don't know, I don't understand, but I'll be like, but this doesn't make any sense, or this is bizarre, or like, what's going on here?
I read a lot more genre than he does, and I have the perfect analogy for what I like. I thought the sirens didn't happen when you were here. I have a perfect analogy for what I like and don't like and why. I want you to imagine two things. One is a homeowners association. Your New York equivalent would be a condo board. A homeowners association is a group of unofficial vigilantes who can make your life a living hell. They patrol everything you do, and they judge the value of what you're doing. And they look at your house that way. They're not really concerned with you. They're concerned with your house and what it does to the neighborhood property values. Versus a house flipper. A house flipper buys a property, assesses with their own skill what is best in that property, keeps that, and fixes the stuff that isn't. Changes the property into something that is different and yet still the same. As far as I'm concerned, when you're writing genre fiction of any kind, if you're the homeowners association, you're doing it wrong. And if you're the house flipper, you're doing it right. You're taking something that did exist before you, is going to exist after you. It still has the same address. You can't move it. But you're taking parts that you love, that you think work, and preserving them, maybe even improving them, while adding new things. How's that?
That's good.
That's a fancy simile. If that doesn't get me back in the Sam and Hannah Club, I don't know what will.
That's good.
The next question, you'll never believe this, but it's a whole paragraph long. We're almost out. We're almost done, though. How much do you think your personalities and politics, or perhaps your literary backgrounds, affect your interpretations of particular books? Does anything immediately give you a negative opinion of a book? On the flip side, is there anything you think you might get an easier pass from you than it might from other reviewers? Would any of these responses make you refrain from reviewing particular books?
Well, I have scrupulously endeavored to have no personality at all. So, and as I think this video evidences, I've succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. So it doesn't get in the way
at all. It tends to come out when you're 3 sheets to the wind. Once it gets to half a cup of wine, then it's all bets are off.
It doesn't get in the way at all. No,
but in terms of, I believe, as you would put it, in subsection 15 of the question, do you ever encounter a book? You mentioned earlier tonight that you encounter a book and sometimes you just deflate at the very idea of reviewing it, and that way you know you're not going to do it.
Yes.
Because you don't have anything to bring to it, even if some other critic could.
Yes.
But do you ever encounter a book where that is not true, but you're still saying, oh no, there's no way. There's no way at all that I can do this? Maybe because of the politics of the author, or the subject matter of the book.
Right.
Is there ever anything? I don't think I've ever asked you this. Is there ever anything like that where you get it and think, this is going to be a commercial property, this is a new release that people are going to talk about, It is a natural fit for my column,
Yeah.
but I'm absolutely not going to do it for one reason or another.
I don't think it's ever that conclusive, but I have here's an example. Here's one that I think I'm not going to write about, and it's Miranda July's new novel. She has a novel coming out this month, and it is, I think it's about, I think it's an extremely autobiographical thing, or at least loosely autobiographical thing about a middle-aged woman who haven't read it, so I could be wrong, but I believe she has a lot of affairs, and it's about the sort of heightening sexual desires of a woman who is entering perimenopause, and it's sort of described in the jacket copy as like the great perimenopause novel. So I read like the first 20 pages or something. I wasn't really feeling the tone of it. I mean, it's a comic novel, and I just could tell I wasn't going to laugh a lot for it. And I just thought, I'm not going to get this novel. I think I could review it fairly, but I also think that there would be, it's one of those books that is going to be really, really for certain people. That's just part of the way the book is going to be, I think. Some people are just going to connect with it more. And I think you do have to accept that. And I think that could constitute a criticism, but maybe not a really serious, but maybe a slightly irrelevant criticism. So it's just...
Especially if the author wrote it that way.
Yeah,
then
exactly.
It would be borderline irrelevant, certainly. If
Right.
that's the author's entire point.
Right.
If the author's all about saying this isn't for you.
Exactly. If the author is not endeavoring to write a deathless masterpiece that people will read in 1,000 years, but is trying to write a thing that really connects to a certain experience that people are having in the world.
What will you do if I, myself, enter perimenopause tonight? Will it be something of a relief?
I'll be confused, for one thing.
But that's one thing where the author's writing something that just isn't for you, that isn't meant for you. But what about, I remember years ago, you had a strong reaction to, was it late Paul Auster? Was it his Holocaust book? That's now an adaptation. Is it Zone of Silence? Who was that?
Oh, Martin Amis.
Martin Amis, right. And your reaction to that, in part, had nothing to do with the prose or the execution. It was, are we really going to make the Holocaust just a hackneyed background for a novel?
Well,
would you have an advanced reaction like that to a book somehow and say, no, the very materials you're working with don't work with me?
Right. I don't think so. I'd like to think not. I mean, because I actually did end up liking that Martin Amis novel.
I kind of did too.
But I had that reaction, just thinking, "Oh God, a love story set in Auschwitz." Which
I remember your reaction was,
how it was built.
It's outrageous in a way that it's trivializing.
Yeah, but Martin Amis,
are we just going to make this another background for a book?
Right, but he's smart enough that he knows that that's. I mean,
he wanted to provoke that reaction at first,
right.
and then subvert it himself.
Right. No, I don't. I'm not sure. It only comes about when I feel that I've read too many books on the exact same subject, and then I have nothing else more to say about it. But that's a more personal thing. I don't think so. I don't like to think that we're talking about novels here, so I don't like to think that there's any novel. I mean, even this one that I mentioned that I decided not to review, but I can still read it and then have judgments from it. I didn't think it would make sense to devote a review to it, where I could do other things where I'd be on more sure ground. But I don't think so. Anyone can read any novel. I don't think so.
I take a more strident viewpoint on this. A book is a naked thing out in the world. If it doesn't stand and work for itself, it deserves to be ripped to shreds. Just ripped to bloody shreds, because it's got a price tag on it. If you're gonna write a book and say this novel isn't really for you people over here in subsection A, but it's over here in subsection B that I'm writing it for, if you're not sending it directly to them, if you're sending it to Barnes and Noble with a price tag on it, then it should be ripped to shreds if it's incomplete. And it's incomplete if it's at one sliver of an audience, I think. But I'm probably not typical in that regard. Oh my God, that was almost the last question. Let's go to the last one. Steve's recent mention of Clifton Fadiman's essay, I I mentioned Clifton Fadiman wrote an essay on book review.
Is he coming over later?
I think he is coming over later. Yes, indeed. He wrote an essay 70, 80 years ago on book reviewing. Remarkably still true. All the observations about book reviewing are always still true. It makes me wonder how the two of you might define the differences between book reviewers, book critics, and literary historians.
Oh, man.
There's plenty of wine left. Sam is grateful now to know there's plenty of wine left. Clifton Fadiman, in that essay that Hannah is talking about, draws a broad distinction between book critics, literary criticism, and book reviewing.
Yeah.
He draws a broad distinction between those two, much to book reviewing's detriment.
Yeah, I mean, I think the usual understanding of book reviewing is that it's shorter, and it's shorter deadline, it's shorter turnaround time, and it's more like assessments, like quick evaluations,
and generally not done with a schema, right? Whereas literary criticism has a theme, it has a schema to it.
Yes.
Whereas book reviewing is, this is the thing in front of me.
Right.
It's good or bad, it's mockable or not mockable, and here's what I'm going to tell you about it. Here's what I'm going to tell my audience about it.
Right.
Was there another one? Literary historians, which don't even enter the picture. Neither you nor I.
Yeah.
Make any pretense of being.
I mean, a work of literary history has to be a book-length thing. I would think it can't be a.
I don't think you'd even do it piecemeal in periodical pieces. I don't think you could do that.
No.
Yeah, it would have to be a book.
Right.
Sooner or later, Sam might write a work of literary history. I certainly will not. And Hannah might do it. She's a prime candidate. She should do it. But in terms of the first two, literary criticism is where you sit back in academia and draw out totally unsustainable, ridiculous themes about a whole series of unconnected books. Whereas book reviewing is the most important literature in the world. Saying, here is a book. There are 500,000 of them coming out this year in the United States alone. 500,000 coming out this year alone. Cut that in half for all the reprints, all the car manuals, all the language manuals, all the repair manuals. That's 250,000 books. Cut that in half. Bring that down to 100,000 books by leaving out the reprints and the Bibles and the Bible studies and all that. Leave out all the computer manuals, all the self-help books even. Leave out all of that. You still got 100,000 books. No one can read 100,000 books in a year. We're there on the ramparts, picking off the zombies, trying to let the living books get by to you. We're the most important people in the world.
Still, if you can, you want to get some criticism into the reviews. That's what I aspire to do.
Literary criticism?
Yeah.
You know, well, you would aspire to do that, would you? I don't try. I try to get in bad puns in my reviews. I don't try to get in any literary criticism. Because most of the stuff that I'm reviewing, most of the stuff that you're reviewing, although your authors would howl and protest, is not literature. It's lining for the birdcage. It's nothing at all. It won't be around in 70 years. No one will know what it is. They'll have to search the hinterlands of the internet to even know who. What's an example? You could choose the bad, Tama Janowitz. It's already a footnote. You could choose the not so bad, Meg Wolitzer. Might as well already be a footnote. But also, you could choose the great, much as I hate to say it, Hilary Mantel. Will certainly not be remembered in 100 years. Certainly not. We are there to assess all of this. It's going to be a long night. You started off the night with Frida savaging you, and now there's Hannah's questions and me. But he has a different opinion. Your approach to this is deeper than mine, so that's no strange. They're not strangers to that idea. So there you go. Bunch of literary questions from Hannah to Sam, with me in the way.
Thanks, Hannah.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think, though, that now it's time for a few clips from High School Musical. Because after all...
Let's bring our critical prowess to bear.
Was that a slight against High School Musical? I want to remind you all that we're all in this together. The only reason he knows that quote is because he's been subjected to that clip a million times. Well, I just imagine there'll be some book talk as well. We'll get into book talk before High School Musical. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up for now. BookTube, send your condolence cards to Sam. I'll see you soon.